Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined by Phil for what is a special discussion. Something I don't think we've ever done on the channel. We've done news on the channel. We've done breaking news on the channel. This is a day ago. We are doing a video on maybe one of the biggest film news pieces of the year so far. And that is the big announcements that happened over at Lucasfilm last night. It's actually been hard to even come up with a name for this video because I don't want to make it look like I'm clickbaiting because it's a lot more than one name involved. But before we start diving into things, Phil, it's been a while. How are you doing, my friend?
Indeed, it has been a little bit. Yeah, no, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm glad to be back and glad to be chatting. We'll get into it all. I'm not going to give my thoughts straight away of a news that is not a shock, but it is still a surprise, I reckon.
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. And obviously, you can all tell by the title. I'm also going to say this. This is so awkward. This is the second time I've been live in 3 days, and I've been live for about 4 months. So if anyone's watching live, please do comment. I will bring them up, we promise. We're talking Star Wars. I can see we've got Carl in the comments already. Lovely to hear from you, Carl. I hope you're doing very well and you've had a lovely break in New Year. I know it's mid-January now. It is just so long since we've been live. And it's nice to be able to be live because it puts you on edge a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more careful what you say. But it also means if people want to give their thoughts, chat along, you can comment whatever you want. We're pretty relaxed on here. We'll have our thoughts. Me and you, we disagree on a fair few things, but we're civil in how we disagree, which is the art of the discussion, which I think isn't always the case online. And I know this subject itself is going to be very controversial for some. Some will be delighted, some won't be. I've seen some abhorrent messages. I've seen some nice messages. I know people that are involved that work at Lucasfilm themselves or companies belonging to Lucasfilm. I've seen a variety of posts in the last 24 hours. I'm going to say this, and this sounds really dramatic, and it's not my intention on an intro. It does sound like someone's died. I know that's not the case at all. I'm just saying it like the reception and everything that's gone around this. And I guess I keep saying this. Let's get into it. So last night, following, let's say, 3 years worth of rumors, it's been announced that Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down as the leader, the president of Lucasfilm. She's going to move back into producing films, which obviously she did before, as well with her age. So there's always been murmurs of her wanting to retire or go on the slowdown, which is very understandable. She's in her 70s. She's worked in this industry for 40, 50 years, working on some of the biggest productions in her earliest days on them. Of course, we're talking Lucasfilm, we're talking Indiana Jones, which she's been a part of from Raiders onwards. So she's well vested in the film industry as an understatement. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And we have the follow-up announcement that the new president will be Dave Filoni. And we are also joined by Lynwen Brennan, who's going to be the co-president. So that is it in short. The official statement from Disney implies it is a transition period, which is actually correct in business terms. I think there's a lot of things people don't realize. But as well as the big news, what I think is as interesting is that Kathleen Kennedy's leaving interview, if you could call it that, has gone up on Deadline. I encourage everybody to read it in full. It is a massive article, and it is the most open interview I think anyone from the hierarchy has had in well over a decade, for obvious reasons that she's not going to be part of moving forward. It has details on the future projects, things that worked, things that maybe didn't work, the future of filmmaking. We're going to go through a little bit of that as an overview, what this discussion is, but this is also a free discussion for all of us. So, Phil, I'm going to hand over to you whilst I do a couple of admin things. Your initial thoughts, the text that came in when you find out, talk me through you.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, right? So the rumor has not been, this isn't a new thing. We've heard little rumblings here and there over the past 3-4 years that Kathleen Kennedy was going to step down, and then it wasn't initially reported in terms of those initial rumors who was going to step in and replace. People had their hopes, and Filoni obviously was George's right-hand man when it came to the Clone Wars. People thought it'd be right if he stepped up. And it's something that we have talked about, not even just on here, but in our own private chats. We've had discussions about where we think the future could go. So when the announcement did drop, it was almost a full, surprise to be sure, but a welcome one, because not putting it on Filoni and the new producer as well, it's more the fresh blood is always interesting. I'm not going to say it's always good. It's always interesting to see, okay, where they're going to go from here. It's the first change at Lucasfilm since Disney acquired it back in 2012. So we've only known this new era, and there's going to be a lot of people out there who have very strong opinions. Whatever way you're leaning, whether it's good or if it's bad or it's indifferent, that's fair enough. I must admit, I'm leaning a little bit more the indifferent category because there's some things I've absolutely loved, some things I haven't, and that's just how it all goes. But when the announcement did drop, it was interesting to see that Filoni isn't doing it alone, and it is. We'll get into the article a little bit later, but one of the things I found fascinating was more the financial side of things. The fact that Filoni's kind of more going to have the creative control, but the money's going to be left to one side, which I think is a smart decision. If you have someone who's passionate about the job, great. But if you have someone who's passionate but isn't experienced, then things can go right. And Kathleen Kennedy had that experience. As you said, she did 40 plus years before she took over Lucasfilm. She had almost 15 years in the job since then. It's a great thing. And when we then had this announcement come through, I felt that they'd done it correctly. And what I mean by that is purely the fact that they went, not only is it Filoni, here's also the side part as well. This is where they're going to be leaning. This is who's going to be working on what. This is the new approach, but without it being there was no fanfare in a way of, the big thank yous and, it's new era. It was a proper, I liked it in a straight sense of business of this is happening. And as you said, it's a transition period. It's not a full on hit, someone got fired. Here's the dirty details, all the rest of it. And that article, are you going to have a link down the bottom for the article to?
Oh God, I'm going to put it in the comments. Good reminder, thank you. I'm going to link the first one. So what we'll do with this, we're not just going to read the article and go over it, but we're sort of going to go through it just to make sure we don't miss anything mega. And it is there in the comments for anyone that is curious. That's posted there now. You can also obviously find it on StarWars.com's homepage. I'm with you. I'm going to make a lot of football conversation tonight. I know Carl's a football fan who's watching. Immediately, what you just said there, right? This is a transition period, and you appreciate how they've announced it. Before we even get into that, I want to actually bring this up. They've now said that this has been going on for 2+ years, that they have known about this for 2 years, and that they were to put in play a transition period. Now, I'll get to the future projects much later on when we go into that in depth, but I think this explains how quiet things have been recently, if I'm allowed to say that. And I know we've all said this on the group chat. Obviously, me, you, Dave, Sam, we still talk a lot often. Plans made for May. I've got to talk about May actually as well. But it reminds. I'm going to talk about Arsene Wenger and Arsenal. So when Arsene Wenger won the FA Cup in 2017, I can't remember. I know you're not big on football, but I'm sure you're aware of the name. He won the FA Cup in 2017. It was a very turbulent time within the Arsenal football fan base. A lot wanted him out, a lot didn't. Sounds similar to what we're going to talk about a lot today. He won the FA Cup in circumstances no one believed could happen. And he hadn't signed any contract. He was going to go off into the sunset of the trophy, right? The perfect ending. It absolutely was. He told the club he wanted to leave, and they begged him to stay, that they had made no plans to replace him. Granted, he had been at the club at this point in time for 21 years and was obviously entering his late 60s, early 70s, on top of the fact there's been a loud noise for several years before. So he signed a 2-year contract extension. And in that 2-year period, he left after the first year, and they hadn't done anything for replacing him, even though they begged him to sign the contract saying they spend the time looking for a replacement. The person they then replaced him with was a total failure, and he was gone with just over a year. But the person that was responsible, the top dog, right, he then fled. He fled to Italy. He went to Milan. He left the club in the state because he'd hidden behind this manager for so long. He knew now the pressure's going to be on me, and he dipped. And then what they did when this guy left, he's called Ivan Gazidis, they then split his role up into 3. This is where it's going to sound a little bit familiar, folks. You had one person to do the finance side of things, one person to do the signings, and the other person to be doing like the sporting side. And that's how the club has operated since. The club's in a much better place now, with basically because the owner decided to actually take interest. But there's some comparisons I'm going to make due to that. And I don't know if that's gone over your head. Tell me if it has or hasn't. But I sense that going from a football conversation to this conversation, I'm really happy Lucasfilm have a plan. And I think that's the most reassuring thing, because like you, I'm indifferent on it. There's been some projects either door I love that I will never forget. The experiences, whether it be socially, events, watching them, revisiting them at home. And there's naturally things I also dislike, which I think will be the case for many, and you're allowed to have that opinion too. There'll be some things people will say is unforgivable, which is understandable. I've sat in that category for one film at least, and people will talk about behind the scenes issues, and maybe we'll talk about a couple of those things too. But at no point have I ever had total fear over Lucasfilm with Kathleen Kennedy in charge, knowing that George Lucas picked her, that she has this, she's a multiple Oscar-winning producer. She's been one of the most successful producers pre-Lucasfilm, financially, accolades with critics. Then Lucasfilm come in, obviously, say what you want. A lot of those projects have been very successful, but not all of them have. And there is a lot of that loud noise like Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. And if I'm allowed to say this, I know we haven't even got into the article. The thing that makes me nervous, and this isn't to do with Filoni, this isn't to do with Lynwen Brennan, this is the Disney factor. And I don't know if I'm going to put it on the spot by saying this. I think I put it in a text. Sorry, I've texted so many people over the last day. We're currently doing a Pixar retrospective, not to plug it for the sake of it. But we recorded our Up review on Wednesday. That's going to go up on the 3rd of Feb. I've got to do some heavy editing to what I'm about to say. We had a conversation about Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm, and we were laughing and mocking it because we've heard that rumor every week. So in 2 weeks' time, when that video goes up, we're going to look like twats. Obviously, I'm going to do some editing. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm going to keep it in there and put something on, like a text over the top. But we spoke about Pixar, how you had Steve Jobs. Obviously, people forget his involvement with Pixar. He bought them from George Lucas. They're at the root of this conversation. When Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, granted he'd sold the company to Disney at that point, he was Disney's biggest independent shareholder. He was still involved at Pixar. You still had John Lasseter involved, who obviously would leave in 2018 when everything came out about him, which is understandable as to why he left. But there is no denying, if you were to look at Pixar post the Disney acquisition in 2006, up to 2018, to when they lose Lasseter, aka your last original higher up, you could look at Pixar in the last 7 years and see how different that company's become. And while someone like Pete Docter, who directed Up, who was part of the original Pixar group, is their chief content creator, we're going to get there, not content creator, creative officer, sorry. He's reporting to Disney. I'm not saying he doesn't have power, he does. But you can look at the political background of Pixar in the last few years, the stories you read, the productions, the issues, what's been going on, things that are being edited out that Disney want edited out. They've lost the power of the Lasseter of the Steve Jobs, who was big enough of a name to disagree with the higher-ups. Whereas with Lucasfilm, this is terribly unfair to say, and I'm not going to pin this on Filoni at all. I'm looking at the other way around where Kathleen Kennedy would say no to Disney, but there's only so many times she could say no, right? We all know about the hunt for Ben Solo. Lucasfilm wanted to make that film, Disney wouldn't put the money in. Do we think, if I'm allowed to ask this to review, I'm not saying it's going to go the way of Pixar, different businesses, different ideas. Do you fear that sort of thing, that the names that have come in, and we'll get into it properly, but just my initial question to you and to the people watching, is there a worry that we've got so internal people involved within Lucasfilm, which is wonderful for progression, but are we missing that experienced producer that has worked outside of that system, aka a Jon Favreau, who I actually was convinced would be a part of a trio that would run Lucasfilm? Fair enough, I've got wrong. But I don't know what you think about that. And that's way too early for me to ask that in this, but that's where I wanted to go and I have leaned into it.
It's interesting. And I almost view it as because you have Brennan coming in, who she has spent 16 years at ILM, so she also knows the ins and outs of Lucasfilm alongside not only Star Wars, but obviously the other projects that involve. And that's something we do have to take in consideration when it comes to Lucasfilm. It's not just Star Wars. There's a lot more to that business than it is just the Star Wars films we know and love. So having the experience alongside Filoni is a good thing. What I think it's going to come down to is more Filoni. I in my gut feeling, Filoni will say no to changes, but he'll want to make stuff that Disney will say no to. It will be a bit of a butting heads until they can find a middle ground that works. Because Filoni is very much old school in terms of he knows what George's vision was, and he wants to execute it with his flavor going forward. That's he's had the really good bit of having Kathleen Kennedy almost groom him not for the last 2 years, but for the last 5 to 6 years, because of where they had the Mandalorian come in. She went, okay, I want you to jump on that with John. Have a go at directing, have a go at writing, have a go at, you've done your animation. That's great. Let's get you more involved. Let's get you boots on the ground and actually see the technology in action, see what's going on, and know more about how to do live action. He then got Ahsoka off the back of that, going, okay, you can do this. Here is your next project. Now you've had a taste of it. Now I want you to go away and do your own thing entirely, because the stories, it's building off the stories we know that he's already created. Now, stories he's going to come up with going forward, I'm not entirely sure where that's going to go, but between him and the story group and Pablo Hidalgo, I have faith they're going to do justice to the fans and do justice to George's legacy and Kathleen's legacy and bring everything together that way. Brennan, I think, will give him the nod, as it were, to yes, you can do this, or no, you can't, from the financial side and what they can and can't get away with Disney. Now, I do agree that sometimes the external spark is good. And as a Patriots fan, fair enough, not just the European football, American football, I've also seen that myself. We had the greatest quarterback of all time and the greatest coach of all time for 20 odd years. When Brady left, it was a case of, okay, Bill still had some power. He then ended up being fired. We had an internal coach come up and went, okay, well, you didn't work after 1 year. He left to get the replacement that our owner wanted all along. That's now worked fantastically exactly how he wanted it to. And it's a similar thing here of someone being in the business, but being around it is always good, but having external experience, it is necessary to have a fresh set of eyes and not someone who's so blinkered. So I don't know exactly where it's going to go from here in terms of that creative yes versus no versus Disney. However, I do think, though, it's another voice that Disney can trust. So I think there might be some leniency, maybe not fully, but they'll have someone like they had with, when it came to Kathleen Kennedy, she was handpicked by George. Disney kind of got stuck with her a little bit. And that's where I think some of the breakdown may have happened over the years. Whereas Filoni, they have seen and they've kind of seen what his direction is. But again, he's a George man. So depending where it goes, I'm not entirely sure. But from here, I said, I agree with you with the external spark, but I also think that because Dave Filoni is so narrow-minded with some things, I mean that with all the best intent there, I think we're going to get some bonuses, but it's a little early to tell you. I'm not going to put too much on it because, well, we had the announcement yesterday. We're talking about it today. Yep. We've got years to come. We know that's been in the works for a couple of years, but that doesn't necessarily translate from how are you going to prepare for the role to, okay, now you've got the role, what are you doing going forward?
Agreed. And I think it's worth saying, if we dig into the article a little bit, Filoni is going to be reporting. So the structure of hierarchy at the top of Lucasfilm, you have Filoni. What I did find odd, now someone can correct me, maybe this is a business term, Dave Filoni is the president, but Lynwen Brennan is the co-president. That to me reads ever so slightly as Filoni is above her somewhat, even though I thought it should mean they're equals. I'm not bothered in a polite way, but it is interesting it's been split, as you said, right? Lynwen Brennan, she's worked for ILM. People forget Lucasfilm own ILM. There's so many subsidiaries that fall within Lucasfilm that there's so much to take into account. As you said, Phil, it's not just Star Wars. Even franchises, it's not even just film. It's not just TV. Lucasfilm Games is back. And if you were going to pull up a draw list to say, right, what did everything they get wrong? Black and white, yes, no. One of the ones near the top is Lucas getting rid of LucasArts. Understandable, if I'm allowed to say it, as to why. Because there was nothing in production for those first 4 or 5 years. But the exclusive deal with EA did not work out. Lucasfilm rectified that. They stripped them of the license. And they've been able to share it. We're starting to get games in production. Different types of games is probably worth adding. So it's interesting that we have somewhat of a structure, and I'm really comfortable with Lynwen Brennan. I'm still very comfortable with Dave Filoni as the chief creative officer. I think that was always the progression plan with him as George Lucas's right-hand man. And something I really hope, as you said as well, we're years away from knowing what any of this is going to mean. I mean, you take the clocks back to October 2012, the day they were bought, I don't even know you at this point in time, which is wild. But even in 2016, when I met you and Dave that day, there's only been one Star Wars film out at that point in time. We've got no idea how the next 10 years are going to go at that point in time. You know, we're thinking we wouldn't have even known about a live action TV series at that point in time, but we knew there was going to be a lot of films. And it's impossible to predict the future, especially in business acumen within the film industry right now. You're currently gearing up for a really nasty legal battle involving Netflix, Warner Brothers, and Paramount, which is going to go on for quite a few years. You've got a vested political interest where there's a president trying to get involved in that because one of his right-hand men is the one that owns Paramount, trying to buy them cheap. So there's a lot of things that we can't even take into account that don't exist at this point in time.
Let alone AI as well, which is now going to become a big part. And against in the interview, that's one of the things I'm saying. Outside of just the Star Wars facts, I do encourage people to read it purely from that AI perspective, because outside of
I read that and I was like,
but outside of just the Star Wars, for you here on Cinema Savvy, George, that's going to be a big factor going forward in films in general. So let alone just Star Wars. So I'm very interested to hear your take, not now, but in the future.
No, I'll give you my short. I think we're going. I think so. The SA, you remember the strike of 2023, right? The writer strike, the actor strike. Because obviously you've worked in the industry, so you know a lot, especially the union side. I think it's every 3 years they do the renewal contracts, and it's coming up to year 3. Obviously, the topic conversation of SAGs, WGAs is going to be the AI. The Directors Guild of America, their president is now Christopher Nolan, which, if I'm allowed to say, is the best deployment ever in terms of safety, because at absolutely no chance in the world are they going to be doing same day releases with him involved, the DJ. I think it's going to be caved in eventually. I think, if I'm allowed just to make a comment on AI, I absolutely hate artificial intelligence. I'm not opposed to it. What I'm opposed to is the corporate AI, which has been the last 2-3 years, which has been make it, sell it, who can we get it to the most. There is a global bubble about to burst, and there's going to be a lot of companies struggling after, because they've all picked and assigned different AI companies. Like everything in life, there will be one winner from a tech perspective. I don't care to know who that is, but it seems like business to business, if people want to get into that, is where the AI nonsense is occurring the most. You can get into the eco side of things, the environmental damage, the energy bills, the drainage of water to fund these and keep these things running. Look at the price of RAM that's absolutely blown up in the last 6 months because all the RAM has been bought to be used on AI factories. It's a very dangerous place. And then you've got Disney, who have put, I believe, $1 billion into an AI company. So they took them to court for illegally using Disney IP. And for reasons unknown, I've not read the full article, Disney have ended up, after the court case, putting $1 billion in, and it's going to give them access to Disney characters and films, not to make AI, but I think to basically make memes and not get sued. That's my understanding from what I've read. Some people, I don't care about AI enough to know, but I've seen videos from some people explaining it's a good thing, some saying it's a bad thing. Personally, I'd rather Disney were investing in it for the sake of copyright purposes, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. I know a lot of people like to do Lara Croft, for example. We've seen a picture of Sophie Turner in the Lara Croft costume yesterday. One photo, legitimate photo. I'm going to defend it because she's from where I live, so I'm always going to defend her. But people have now used AI to turn it into videos, and that's the stuff that then people get missed out by. And I think it's, especially with everything in the news with X, Grok, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, all the nonsense stuff going on there. It needs to be regulated.
I had a customer come to me who wanted a 3D model designed for them, but they used AI to then make one initially. So can you just make this, but change it to how I want it? I'm like, you've done all the work. Where's my time? Where's my energy going to go into this? Because you've already basically done it. You're taking my job away from me. Thanks.
It's just it. I think there's a lot of people that, as I said, I think James Cameron said it best. If you can make it a tool to be beneficiary for people to use for work, but not in a lazy way, not to strip away arts, not to strip away intelligence, not to cheat at school exams at uni, if you can find a way to use it to enhance what you do, then that's great. And I am for that. But I don't think we're anywhere near that. I think we're in the corporate side of it where it's just about, hey, guess what? You can sack 100 members of staff for one AI bot. And I don't like that. It's not needed. And I'm very judgmental on companies doing that. So it's definitely a big discussion to have. The film industry, it's impossible to predict, but I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting... I don't think the studios would want to risk strikes again. That's probably also a better term. And I'd imagine this time around, the SAGs, WGAs, I think as long as the directors could actually team up with them this time, they'll be fine. And it is interesting what's going to happen again with stuff like this because Kathleen Kennedy spoke about AI. We know that ILM has done some AI stuff in recent years, not on their film and TV. I think they've been trying to do something with artificial intelligence like as a project. Again, I have no interest in that. But if that's something that Kathleen Kennedy's wanted to do, Disney would like them to do, I understand why that would end up at ILM rather than anywhere else. But yeah, sorry for the AI chat. I just hate. I turn into like a little mini anti-Terminator. But if we talk a little bit more, so let's get into this a little bit more. Let's talk about Kathleen Kennedy. So she takes on the role of presidency in 2012, asked by George Lucas when he makes the call to sell to Disney, puts her in place. Keys to the Kingdom, they work together from Indiana Jones onwards. Someone he trusts with that. Again, going back to what I said earlier, someone who I think is in the right position of power, the right experience. And I'm not going to sit here and do this with a checklist of films that do and don't work, but I think what epitomizes her as a producer with her experience, I'm always going to go to Solo, was you hired Phill Lord and Chris Miller, who on paper were two fantastic choices to do something really different with Star Wars, something like Solo. Things are going not well, there's an understatement on set. And if anyone spoke to anyone on set, you'll all know of that too. They put together a rough cut. They see that this film is unwatchable and it's unusable footage. So they are very promptly sacked and replaced with Ron Howard, Oscar winner, a safe pair of hands, the guy that George Lucas originally asked to direct Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. And have to reshoot the entire film for legal reasons to ensure that they don't give credits to Phill Lord, Chris Miller, all the usual stuff. Now, people obviously don't like that, and I understand that. There's some criticism in that. You technically get the hire wrong, but I also own the fact that, guess what, we got it wrong, so we fixed it mid-production. And I think really that the failures of that film, financially, Bob Iger took the blame for. He said, I demanded the May release. I chose to release this 3 weeks after Avengers Endgame. Infinity War. Sorry, it's funny still. Rather than December, where Aquaman grossed $1 billion for doing nothing. So that epitomizes the experience of a producer, right? A real film producer. Someone who's worked in the studio system, worked on big blockbusters, small independent films. She's done that too. She's now done TV, I guess you could say, The Mandalorian and stuff like that. Where I want to kind of start with this, and listen, we're not reading the article one by one. We've gone through the core that she will be stepping down. The interest for me is the fact that she's going to go back to producing. Now, whether she wants to go on the slowdown, I know she's done the interview where she spoke about she wants a documentary, she wants to work with Frank Marshall, her husband a little bit more, people in front of who Frank Marshall is, the producer of the Jurassic Park films and many other successful films. What are your thoughts on her leaving, genuinely? And we can have this chat whether we want to get there, whether people want to comment. Because as I said, I don't have a problem with her leaving. I do think now is the best time. And what I'll open with that reasoning for is we've had the sequel films. We've had the spin-off films in between those films. Okay, we've got through COVID, which was obviously tough for the whole industry. We've got through the strikes. We've had the TV boom that's come and gone for Disney Plus. We're definitely going to say that. Disney Plus has come and gone. Just, let's greenlight everything. And now it seems like they've found their focus again. We have a film coming out in 4 months' time. We have a film coming out next year, Starfighter. We have one TV series coming out, I'm assuming, in between those. And everything past this point is an unknown.
2.
I think 2. Oh, Maul and... Sorry, I was thinking live action. Yes, Maul we've got coming. I think Maul's coming a lot sooner than we think, by the way. I think Maul could be out in May, if I'm allowed to make that prediction, or sooner. And obviously, I think Ahsoka, I wouldn't be surprised if they delay it to January, only so they can do the whole 50th anniversary year. I think now is the best time for her to leave because Lucasfilm is back on track, i.e. there's things in post-production. That's key. And it opens the door for the other projects that have been rumoured, or maybe there's people working on projects we don't know about. and that sets it off for Filoni, Bronwyn, not Bronwyn, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with my Welsh names now. That makes it with Filoni, Lynwen, Brennan, Disney themselves, because they seem to have had this issue with Disney Plus now. Iger's back. I think the time is right for her to announce that she's stepping down. I think transition-wise, it absolutely makes sense for somewhat of a quiet patch. You can't do this post episode 9. You can't do this during COVID still. It kind of feels right that it's now. Now that it seems that Disney know what they want and what they're aiming for their IP to be, if we have to talk on that awful business term, I'm all for it in a nice way. She's been the president for just over 14 years, and she's in her 70s and she wants to slow down a little bit. I think that's the correct call to make. And it seems like making the call 2 years ago, going back to what we said, having Filoni under her wing, going back to, I think last year I did, Ryan Johnson once say he'd like shot a scene or like picked up a camera and did a little bit for him. I think it's been that I'm wanting to make sure we've got the right person to come in, because had George Lucas never sold, had George Lucas never gone to Disney, I could be guaranteeing you right now that Dave Filoni would be the Lucasfilm president, and George Lucas would have took him under his wing in a deeper way than he already had.
You've already hit the nail on the head, though, with the 50th anniversary. This is why this is the time to announce it, because between now and Celebration next year, we have 2 films, 2 TV shows that we know of. We might get another Tales of in May, another 6 episodes. Sure, that's a little thing, doesn't really count too much towards this. But by the time you get to Celebration next year, all the projects that Kathleen Kennedy was the head of will have finished. They will be out and they will be, released. And by the time it's a Celebration, there will be nothing that she's had a hand in.
We've had some breaking news.
Okay.
It's not mega. There was an animated Indiana Jones series in development, codename Reggie. This was from the Star Wars Visions director. The series began development in 2022, and it would be set in between each of the Indiana Jones films. It's only just come out now that it's been cancelled. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, but this has been in the last 20 minutes.
It's a Lucasfilm thing, therefore it makes sense to talk about it. But what was I saying? Yeah, so by the time you get to Celebration next year, Kathleen Kennedy's projects will have finished. And you will have the complete blank slate. And I do think that, fresh change is always good. I mean, whether you look at sports or any other thing, the old adage always is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. However, sometimes just because it isn't broken doesn't mean it's out of date. I don't mean that in a bad way about Kathleen Kennedy. It's just more of okay, we need a new direction. We need fresh blood, fresh outlook, fresh pair of eyes, so we can get stale. And we've had these chats before where we had, umpteen things coming out at once. We went, hang on a second, we were used to waiting years for stuff. And don't get me wrong, we like a little bit more regularity. We like looking forward to stuff. But they got to a point of, well, this is out at this point, this is out at this point, this is at this point. And we had a litany of things. It was almost too much. We're now coming back to the sweet spot, I think, of, a film and a TV show every other year makes perfect sense. It's great. You can look after the brand more. You can look after the story more. Along with the books and comics for those who want to just have that little bit more, you can. There's so many ways to enjoy it. I do think that we have that great transition. Whether her legacy will be looked on favorably today, debatable with a lot of fans. In the future, I do think the fans that are growing up with the sequels, with people's first film being The Force Awakens, give it another 10 years' time, that'll be their childhood growing up. George and I are slightly different in terms of our ages, but I saw the original trilogy first because it was at cinemas in 97. George's first film, I know you talked about this, as Phantom Menace. We are both part of that age group of, yes, for me it's slightly just after, but it's that first Star Wars experience. So when all the hate came out, we didn't understand it, we loved it, and by the time we got to the age we are now, when we had the celebrations and the like for example, Revenge of the Sith, when we had the 20th anniversary of that, all the love and all the things came back for it because those people are grown up. I do think her legacy will be looked on favorably in about 5 to 10 years' time by those
Agreed.
kids now fully grown. We have the new Jedi Order coming at some point. We have things that will give her a bit of a positive. And I'm not going to sit here and say she did everything perfectly, because she didn't. But at the same time, she did the best job she could with the biggest hang up of all, which was she was the first since George. She was the first person since George Lucas to have a hand on Star Wars and have that direction. No matter what way you cut it, even Filoni would have been critiqued to hell and back for how he handled it, whether it be good or bad, because it's the first experience. So, again, reading through the article, she talks about her, things that went well, things that didn't go so well. She brings up Aaron Alderreich again, because I know you mentioned Solo, and she said, he was put in an incredibly difficult position. We did screw up by putting it out too soon, but the pieces were there, it just didn't quite fit. However, it's a fantastic film, so there's good and there is bad going forward. And again, looking through that article, through the essentially an exit interview, as it were, but more public, exit interview, she is looking forward to the future. Again, she said she wants to do more work with her husband. She wants to do more of the producing, the job that she enjoyed. She can now take that luxury to do so. And I do think that we have a good place for Star Wars now because of what she did, but not just that. Lucasfilm, ILM, the volume, things like that, where you look at it and go, okay, there's still that spark of creativity and ingenuity that George Lucas pioneered back in the 70s. He very much went, well, the technology doesn't exist, so I shall make it exist. The volume is our version of that now, where it was, well, on The Lion King, we kind of did this and it kind of worked. On The Jungle Book, and it kind of started to kind of become a thing. They went, okay, well, here is The Mandalorian. All right, let's implement it properly. And when that first trailer came out, that first episode, looking at that external shot, you're like, holy crap, this is incredible. Where do they go to film this kind of thing? They went, oh yeah, this is the volume. And it blew our minds. And you don't have that without the creative direction. So I'm not going to completely bash, but I'm also not going to completely kind of glaze over it as well. That she did do some bad things, but it was very interesting reading it through and seeing her criticize herself and acknowledging. And unfortunately, please, people, do bear in mind, you're going to see some, if you haven't already, there's a lot of articles going around about about the bots and the fans and some other bits and pieces that made, things terrible. It was nothing to do with her. That's not what she said. Go and read the article.
I think people are going to take it out of context, and that's so key. And the only thing I have is I don't go at people with like media literacy, but particularly in the AI era, I'm going to add where there are bots that you can program to do stuff. I'm just going to put a comment with the link for anyone that wants it on the stream. There's the exit interview. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more interviews to come, and there's going to be a lot more articles. Look, we just read an Indiana Jones exclusive, not an exclusive, but someone's exclusive that came out 20 minutes ago when we were live on a stream. There's going to be more of these projects that come out as the years go by, the months, the days, the hours go by. And I think I'm with you that there is absolutely valid criticism on her reign. In the same way, there was valid criticism on George Lucas's reign. And the one thing I'm so glad you brought up is the legacy side of things, right? So we just had the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. I'm going to be open. I didn't rewatch it for the 10th anniversary. December was fucking busy. There's an understatement this year compared to any other year. December was rammed. And I didn't go to the Albert Hall for the concert because I was a bit bitter and like, why are they doing the sequels and not the prequels? Soundtrack-wise, I'm just going to say that. I get why they did 7. But I'm not paying £90 to watch Star Wars 7 in concert. Some people were complaining they didn't do a re-release of Force Awakens for the 10th anniversary. And this is where I get really into it because I love episode 7. If anyone doesn't know this, I love 7 and 8 and I hate 9. I'm just going to stick to that for where this topic will go. 10 years is too soon to do the huge re-release panda, right? In 2015, they couldn't release Revenge of the Sith for this 10-year anniversary. Say, guess what, guys? Come back and come watch this. Not only were not enough people have gone, the film coming out that year is making digs at the prequels. The studio is still avoiding talking about the prequels. They're still avoiding making merchandise about the prequels. They are doing nothing with the prequels because the noise, I'm going to say, which I will still say is a smaller percentage, but a very vocal percentage, is astronomical. And guess what? In 2009, there was the documentary about George Lucas killing people. Not kill their childhood, was it? The people versus George Lucas. Is that what they called it?
Yep.
People were desperate for George Lucas to go. George Lucas raped their childhood, as they said on South Park. The same South Park who then mocked Kathleen Kennedy. I don't mind South Park mocking either of them. It's satire. But I find it incredible when people are very selective in what voices I want to remember. Someone who's been involved on this channel, first ever conversation I had with them, they criticised me for enjoying the Star Wars prequels. That was April 2015. And I've never forgotten that.
Story well, that I've told on this channel quite a few times.
You got berated at university.
I did. I had to stand up in front of my entire class and defend my love of the prequels.
And I find it incredible that history has repeated itself. So I'm looking at Force Awakens for its 10-year anniversary. Like, fair enough, people that when I watched at home, no problem with that. Celebrate it. Please do. 10 years is great. You can't do the commercialization celebration because that generation are not grown up yet. And what we have seen with the Star Wars prequels, I'm going to always go back to Orlando 2017. When Hayden Christensen took the stage for his first Star Wars celebration and kind of... Everyone shares the 2023 clip from London. That just annoys me, not in a horrible way. 2017 was the big return. He was emotional there. Of course, he was emotional at 2023. He'll probably be emotional at 2027 as well, if I'm allowed to say so. But that was the moment that Lucasfilm knew we can sell toys from this series. We can do stuff. We can bring this actor back. And I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, they fucked up. I still maintain, amongst the barrel of issues of Episode 9, that the not putting Hayden Christensen in there is still one of the worst decisions they made. And I'll just say, I'm not there to argue that. I'm not there to fight it, to demand it. It's just my opinion on something that they really missed doing. And do I think if that film was being made, even if it was the exact same film was being made today, he would absolutely be there because they knew that they can go to that. And I think what they're doing with the sequel trilogy, kind of what you said, right, the younger generation, because it's not my generation. I'm a prequel kid. I'm so relaxed in the criticism of the sequels because there's going to be kids that's their Star Wars. And when I'm older, I've got a niece on the way in March. I've already been told no Star Wars. Okay, the niece is going to be Star Wars sequel generation. Theoretically, should be Starfighter generation, right? Or Mandalorian generation. And Star Wars is a generational thing. Again, I'm not going to put a newborn baby onto watching Star Wars straight away. But I find it fascinating that history will repeat itself.
Anyway.
No, history's going to repeat itself. Dave, good friend of the channel, we were with him when he was not with him in person, but with his stories about him showing his son Star Wars for the first time. And I'd shown my cousin's kid Star Wars the first time, and it's those little things that are big. And you realize this is a generational story, film, series, franchise. There are so many different entry points. I've got a friend I worked with whose son that always dressed up as Grogu, which looked really cute. And I think in 10 years' time, when we're basically at 20 years of the sequel trilogy, that will be more discussed. There will probably be a retrospective on Kathleen Kennedy. She actually did do some good after all. And then maybe in 10 years' time, without putting my hands up, the people that are outraged, who were outraged in 2099, to the year 2005, who were outraged in 2010, who were outraged in 2012, who were then glazed Lucas 2013 onwards. That sounds really cringy to say that word out loud, but the amount of abuse George Lucas endured, the same individual who created this franchise, who put his life into this, that history is showing, who did not do well with Star Wars. He did well for the entire film industry and changed cinema historically, frequently, in the present and for the future, the creation of digital, everything he was doing behind the scenes. It's almost unparalleled what he ended up doing as the president of Lucasfilm. And people chastise one of them out for that. Now, I'm not saying Kathleen Kennedy's got to have that legacy at Star Wars. She absolutely won't. But I think from a storytelling perspective, there will be that generation that grows up that grew up with her films and are okay with them. And even for us, I'm really excited for Starfighter. And that is, it's not even her farewell. I mean, if you think about anything in production, her name will be credited still, even if it's executive producer. There'll be stuff that might not come out for 5-6 years. She'll probably still have credits on it because that's how it works. If they've come to her while she's been the president, there'll be an EP credit. Now, she might not have done too much with it, but even if it's her putting the money out there to write the script or provide us with the treatment or to do something, there's an executive producer credit in waiting. So
Yeah,
the
you have
impact of the work.
Simon. Oh, what surname's gone my head?
Yeah. We'll get to
Yeah.
him. Simon Kinberg. We'll get to Simon
Yeah.
Kinberg's trilogy, Phill.
Mm.
We'll get to that. Sorry, that sounds really negative. But yeah, sorry to go on a tangent about the sequel generation. I just find it fascinating. I'm not trying to be a dick. And like I said, if there are people watching that disagree, please comment, because I don't just bring up comments and berate them. I do like to hear differing opinions. I think the problem we have in the social media era is that people find their corners of people that only agree with them. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm definitely saying it's not right. I just think we've lived in a black and white society, not skin color, but clarify, I guess you could say, of opinions where I hate this, I love this. Apparently you can't sit in the middle. Apparently you can't be 2/3 in or 1/3 in. It's, you like this, therefore you are that. And I think people choose to, I don't want to surround myself with indifferences of people, but I would like to hear from people with different viewpoints. I like to understand them. It's the basic form of civilization to an extent for me, is listening to others, accepting you will have disagreements. Maybe you can learn from it and maybe you can't. And I think in this online, not Star Wars, this online generation we sit in, it's never been more disproportionate. You look at the end of Stranger Things, which the Stranger Things fan base, I'm going to say, has become more insane than Star Wars, that tried to kid themselves into thinking there is a secret episode. One of the biggest shows of the last 20 years, they tried to think there was an additional episode because they didn't like how the final season went. You see Star Trek fans, I'm going back to J.J. Abrams' era, with everything that happened with Vince Darkness. You got the Marvel fans when they waffle about post-Endgame. It's so fascinating that people don't learn lessons. As I said, there's always time for valid criticism, and there's always going to be valid criticism, but I find it astounding, some of what I read on a regular basis, I'm going to add. And some people just cannot evolve past that. I think hypocritical from me sitting on the YouTube side. You get people that still think the world is the same as even 10, 15 years ago. Like even Mark Kermode, who was shouty with all of his reviews for so long, even he's sort of willowed as he's got older he goes back to it once in a while. But I just find it fascinating that people almost believe the idea of their opinion being facts. And I think the problem, if I get into this, sorry to be too in depth, I will give you a sec because I probably said so much. I think a lot of people's issues come down to they refuse to believe what they've, like, the images in their head of what they demanded something to be didn't come true, therefore it is wrong. And I think that opinion is dangerous because yes, you can watch something and it doesn't go the way you want, that's fine. But your criticism is this isn't exactly how I wanted it in my head, therefore it's rubbish, invalidates everything. Now the logic of discussion is I don't think this works. This is why I think that. Or it didn't work for me. Or it worked for me. Didn't see that coming. But everyone was like, no, this isn't how 5-year-old me planned episode 7 in my head at the age of 4. I think that's where online struggles. I've got a comment by I've not been live for so long. I'm seeing people I've not seen for ages. Hello, welcome back. I will never understand why people criticize people for liking something. I was 11 for episode 4 and 17 for episode 6, and I love 4 and 5. Didn't like 6 at first. The Ewoks weren't for me at that time, and that was a known opinion. I know How I Met Your Mother does the Ewok graph, and I'm sat there like, I hit an age like the Star Wars prequels, and I was like, people don't like the Ewoks too. I was like, what? Like, I can't wrap my head around that. Yeah, sorry, Phill. I've gone on for so long. I've gone so off topic.
Well, you have and you haven't, because that's so I brought up the whole legacy conversation because it's something that we will have not just now. We look at the immediate aftermath, let alone what's going to be in the future. But, there's a certain creator out there we know that has had some vile opinions over the years.
Did I message you that I got read out on his video once?
No.
Oh my. Okay. Sorry to cut in. Please remember. When I got very, very, very lucky with a ticket to Star Wars on film. We'll bring that up later on. There's a video on the channel from last year. If anyone watched it, I'm just going to plug it in a really nice way. Biggest video of the year. I owe Hollywood Reporter a big favor. There was a screening of the Star Wars, the original UK version, 1970, I think 8 or 77 prints. And 77, an original UK print that has not been screened for about 30 odd years. Didn't get a ticket in the ballot. Not a BFI member. Took my chance. Sent an email I didn't expect to send as press. But you know what? Let's try my luck for a change. Because I've never tried for like non-upcoming things because it's not really a thing. And BFI were very, very, very generous in giving me one ticket, which I couldn't believe I had the opportunity to do. I know you know about this side. Anyway, because I did the video, which was a really interesting video to do because it wasn't a review. It was like a discussion on a contextual film from the 70s. Hollywood Reporter ran an article and they put up Peter Bradshaw's 2-star article basically saying the original Star Wars is shit, which I massively disagree with. But they went for clickbait. And then I got a message from a friend and I was like, you're in this article? I was like, what? And my video had been quoted. So obviously you're putting a paragraph out of a 20-minute video. There's your out of context. And I wasn't criticizing it. I basically spoke about the fact that, you know, I've as I've always said, I understand why George Lucas wanted to make changes. Anyway, you know who, the Star Wars lack of theory, I let's call him, because he doesn't seem to theorize anything on his channel anymore. He did a video reading the article. So yeah, I made it, folks. I didn't get death threats. I'm all good. Sorry to interjecting.
No, it's fine. But that's the my
I
kind
miss
of point,
talking
though.
Star Wars. Sorry.
So do I. You know I do, and I'm more than happy to do it. But that's the thing. So Kathleen Kennedy's legacy is going to be looked back on at different points with different points of view. And I want people to understand that when they read this article, your age, what you grew up with, will affect how you see how the last 13, 14 years has gone, especially with what's coming up. But to take Lucasfilm on and to take the legacy on was never going to be an easy task. And as I said it before, I'll say it again, of just the import of that. And to kind of bring it forward, we're now going to end up with a period, as I said, in Star Wars Celebration in 27, where that blank slate will finally be realized. And we'll get to the 50th celebration. I think Kathleen Kennedy will be there. I think she'll get brought on as a guest for that to talk about her legacy over the last 15 plus years. At that point, you'll have Filoni and you'll have probably Lucas as well. You'll have the 3 eras of Star Wars, to then go what was original, past, future. You'll have everything come forward. And I do think that the direction we'll now see Lucasfilm going will be that story driven, will be that smaller way. And I think that's one of the benefits. So kind of bring it back. Funny enough, I had a chance to think about it whilst you're waffling on about what we might see from Filoni, about the pushback or about the yeses and nos. And I actually think we might be in more of a favor where he's going to favor quality over quantity. I think he appreciates that storytelling aspect. So to see where we might go is a big thing.
It's interesting with Filoni. I'm also saying this as I'm scrolling down on an article that's come out 20 minutes ago. That is the catchphrase is that Dave Filoni didn't like Andor. But again, that's probably out of context. I need to read into it. So the 50th anniversary and celebration, right? So I mean, let's talk about this a little bit. I'm with you. Surely it's going to be a 50-year retrospective on stage where, like the 40th, you'll go through the iterations. This time around, you'll probably get George Lucas come out. He'll probably go through the prequels. You'll probably get the casts like Orlando. Probably get you'll get more of the prequel cast. And I think then you'll get Kathleen Kennedy and you'll get a couple of cast members from the sequel era onwards coming out. It will be right for that. And I kind of said to you before, and I was like, I'm still a bit did I like the timing of it? But the more I think about it, the timing is better, right? It shouldn't. She shouldn't be announcing she's stepping down at Celebration, because that then overmines Celebration, everything they're going to do to quote celebrate Star Wars. D23 still could have been understandable, but that's going to kind of be Dave Filoni's first big Disney event. Okay, he's going to have press for the Mandalorian film coming out, which is going to be huge. but as in like the cycle of interviews, what he'll have to be talking about. But D23 will be his first like industry event for them. And whether that means we're going to be getting a slate of films, I don't know. Whether it means we're going to be getting him just doing an intro, I don't know. I'd assume at that point in time we do get the first Star Wars Starfighter. I can't read the article I've got on my phone because it's too small and it's got a tiny scroll, so I'm going to read it after. But with the 50th anniversary, I mean, let's talk about this. I mentioned that screening. One of the big things which people thought impossible would happen is that Kathleen Kennedy is... What's the words? We didn't ever think we'd get the original Star Wars put at cinema. And I'm not talking about the screening I went to. We now know for the 50th anniversary next year, they're going to be doing a wide release of the original Star Wars. Now, there's still an asterisk on that. It hasn't been confirmed it's like an original 1977 cuts. It's expected to be alongside that. It's still a little bit unknown. Personally, I don't... It's the right time to have shown a completely unedited Star Wars 4, right? If I'm allowed to say this.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make a very dangerous comment, which I've said a lot before, and I always stand by this. I don't need an original 1977 version of Star Wars. Okay, I've seen it now, so I get to give the evidence to it. There's nothing wrong with it. All I'm asking for is a definitive... It's like Blade Runner, the final cut. Like, you've made so many changes. Do a final one, right? Keep some of the important stuff in, i.e. the title card, Episode 4, A New Hope. Example, not all of it. Take out 90s CGI that really didn't work. Keep in certain sound effects which people don't actually know were added in 1978 with the title. Get out Han not shooting first. I would love to see just again, it theoretically is an original cut just with that remastered, redefined, scanning in the prints to be the 4K level, which I'm sure they've probably done. It's a huge way to start that 50th anniversary. And I think if you've done a Kathleen Kennedy, who has her relationship with George Lucas, who has approved them doing this, which she spoke about at the BFI, that goes to show how George Lucas has changed in the defiant last 30 years of him not doing that. And I think that also goes to show as the door is open. I don't think he does that for many of the producers, certainly not Star Wars-wise.
It is a thing, right? I mean, I've seen obviously the DVD that came out with the theatrical releases, right? Yeah. And the thing that always I find funny is the whole Jabba the Hutt and Greedo scenes where Han has the exact same dialogue twice. Like the conversation is exactly the same both ways. And there are little bits and pieces like Disney adding McClunky back into it made no sense whatsoever. It was cut because, well, it's just a random line. So yeah, I agree with you. I want there to be that kind of final definitive, here you go. Because there are too many versions to count. But you agreed. You can't start off a new era with also differences. You need to kind of have that kind of unified look at it. And again, I agreed. Lucas would not have. This is where I get a little caught up in it. I get a little bit kind of. The waters get a bit murky when you look through it because this process was never going to be black and white. It was never going to be a full-on, you're out. These are the reasons why. It's reasons she's leaving are her own. I think it might have been Disney may have pushed somewhere. She may have pushed somewhere. Who knows? We're never going to get that full story, but we are going to get the story of is this is the new slate. Celebration, I think, as I said, is going to be that new launch piece. And you want a unified front for it. So to go back through it is it is interesting. As you said, we've got the releases coming up for it. And I appreciate it. And I will go and watch that uncut because, well, guess what? It's Star Wars in the cinema. You're going to enjoy it. But also not only that, it's a New Hope. Any chance to see a New Hope or any of the originals in the cinema is not one to be missed if you can help it. I was unlucky. I didn't get a chance to go and see Return of the Jedi in 2023 when they had the release for that. I missed some bits, but pieces, but then going back and watching episode 3 when that came for release last year was fantastic. My mistake was going and watching it in 4D because, well, God, that hurt. But it was still kind of good fun to see. And you're going to have that. It's interesting, right? To have here's the 50th, here's the look back from the beginning, here's the new slate all at once.
Can we talk about something else, the 50th, which is actually news this week? Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So, again, you know this. It's not some big ballsy. Oh, look at me. I'm doing a big trip to LA next year, which I'm very, very heavily saving up for and making a lot of other sacrifices in my own life at the moment. Because it's the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. George Lucas Museum will be open. Disneyland is there. Galaxy's Edge is there. So I'll be able to go to that. I'll be able to do the George Lucas Museum. I'll be able to do the Oscars Museum. Ironically, I really don't have much of an interest of LA itself, which is ironic given the film background. But as someone that obviously has a background in film, you kind of have to go to LA to do these sorts of things, like studio tours, like theme parks. So I'm saving. One of the big plans is to do Galaxy's Edge. Now this week we had the announcement that Galaxy's Edge, at the moment the California one, which is great, the one I'll be going to, at the end of April, they're going to be revamping the entire Star Wars. Well, about 2/3 of Star Wars land. It's all going to go from being sequel era into original trilogy era. John Williams' music will now be played across the theme park. I'm assuming that means they have to change the radar dish on the Millennium Falcon. And the characters you see, like the Disney actors in character, will be your Luke, Leia, Han Solo, original trilogy folk. Now, I believe that some of them are already there sometimes on occasion. Like they have a Mando flirting around, which isn't the sequels. They've got a couple of the Rebels cast there. They're still going to go to the Rise of the Resistance area, which my understanding, well, it's not understanding, it's fact, it's sequel trilogy. So they can't obviously edit the theme park rides. I know that the Falcon ride is going to get an update in May for Mandalorian anyway. So they're going to change the graphics. Not the graphics, I guess, I don't know, is it a projector? I don't know how it's done, the screen, the game, who knows. I think that's part of this 50th anniversary celebration because I was sat there thinking about this the other day. Some people are like, it's an L for the sequels. I'm like, the beauty and my outward appraisal of the concept without having visited Galaxy's Edge is the fact they had the balls to create a new planet, to create a new location, which gave them complete creative freedom in what they do with the theme park. The reason I say this is if you pick Tatooine, you are beholden to only doing the Cantina, the Docking Bay 94, which everyone's seen, right? And it's probably still pretty fucking special, probably. But knowing it's something new designed for a theme park, I think is far more interesting as a potential theme park attendee. And with Star Wars, I'm going to say I'm surprised it took them 6 years to rotate the park. But when you think about it, that actually makes sense that you got 6 years on the sequels. The 50th anniversary is next year. The original films are going to be out in cinemas, the original film. You want that triumphant moment, then make the change. And if there's any teething issues, they'll fix it now across the next few months. I'm sure there'll be little costume changes. Obviously, first order troopers will be stormtroopers. Kylo Ren will now be Darth Vader. All of that makes sense. And I think they're quite smart to do it now. And I'm glad they don't rotate it like every year we switch it. It kind of makes sense that, hey, we'll get a few. Probably won't ever get the prequels because how the hell are you going to make battle droids? That's what I've always said. You get clones going around, sure. But in 5 years' time, maybe it'll be the 30th anniversary of the Phantom. Oh my God, it will be 3 years' time. The Phantom is going to be 30 years old. Sorry. That's just hit me really hard. Sorry, different conversation. But yeah, so I think these changes are positive, and I do think that's part of what's going on. That it feels like you mentioned the fact that there is a clean slate, and I'm with you. And it feels like across the board that's happening. And when we spoke about Celebration Japan last year, I don't even think we did a video on it. Like normally I cover it from home. There was nothing, and I'm not disrespecting any Star Wars stuff like the books. I know they did the mall announcement. It was shorter. Obviously, it was in Japan, which is amazing for people that went. But when there was so few things announced, I was sat there like, this really does big up the 50th anniversary one.
Yeah.
This makes that a must attend. I will do whatever it takes to get there. Presuming we're not all in World War IV with the Americans or III or whatever's going to happen across the next, God knows, ridiculous few weeks and months. Sorry to go on a tangent about the theme park. Do you have any thoughts on that too? I didn't mean to sort of disrupt and bring
when when they announced Galaxy's Edge originally, we had not only the park itself, they kind of let that be its thing for a little bit, but then they backed up with 2 books, one comic series that was specifically centered around Galaxy's Edge. You then have had other bits and pieces come through. They've refreshed it slightly when they brought Hondo in to kind of, again, just put some fresh energy into it. But they let it sit, they let it be its own thing. We're now already seeing that the announcement came out. Obviously, they're changing the park. There's a brand new comic series that's starting up in April for that. So you're going to have them change that, because that was not only the only thing is that they just go, well, we're doing our own planet. They went, we're going to make it canon, and we're going to make it so that the story is then immersed into it by giving people more so. Like little mentions of Batu here and there, little, so their own stories and all the rest of it, to kind of make it so when you do go, you're stepping out. And it's one of the clever things about the park itself, by building so high that you can't see out, is you're stepping out from whatever your life is. You're stepping into that Star Wars world. So yeah, having having it go back, having it revert to the original trilogy era to kind of have that 50th, it makes sense. But also, they've had 6 years on it, and they've had positives and negatives, like the
hotel
Halcyon, yep,
Sorry.
Which was terrible. Halcyon Legacy that lasted.
It was
not that long.
Do you know what it was? It was when they invited all the influencers.
Yeah.
And I understand why they did that, because you have to, right? It's Star Wars, it's a theme park. But when they invited all of these people to stay at the immersive 2-day $5,000 thing, and all of them were like, it's so immersive, it's so good, it's immersive, it's good, it's immersive. Would I pay for this? It's so immersive.
I had a couple of friends of mine who did it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So we went to Worlds, for X-Wing Worlds, back in 2023. I went in 23 and 24. And in 2023, a couple of friends of mine stayed longer, and they traveled down and they went to Galaxy's Edge and they did the experience. They played X-Wing, funny enough, on the bridge. Literally put on that down, start playing it around, because, we're nerds, right? And the conversation I had with him was very much, it was incredible. It was worth it from a storytelling point of view. It was not worth $5,000.
Yeah, that was the thing, right? It was the price. The day the prices came out, that died. That whole thing. And what made it worse, when you saw the cabin rooms, and it was like the bed sizes were bad. You're so immersive. It's like,
well, the hilarious thing when it comes down to that, it's not only just like the proportions and all the rest of it, is it looks amazing because it's supposed to be, immersive, all the rest of it. The problem is, people don't understand is, because it looks how it does, the actual functionality doesn't exist. The beds are rock hard because they've only got that much room for a mattress. So you're compromised on everything you do. So if I went there, I'd be screwed. I would not be able to do it. I mean, I want to go in Celebration 27. I want to go and experience that with yourself. I mean, I would help you because like, cool. Here's carers tickets. Here's things half price. Trust me, it would be amazing because I could just get us past all the queues and the rest of it. It would be incredible. I won't be able to.
I mean, if yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, if you do want to go, like it. I know so this is my own, I'm saying this live, but it's fine. I know so many people with the intention to go who will go, and maybe not everyone can, but would like to. I have not booked. I mean, you can't book anything because the tickets aren't on sale. It's not even a year in advance to be able to book a flight. I booked my annual leave from work already. Everyone sat there booking their 2026 at the start of January. I'm sat there like, no, I've just booked 2027 off. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like, I know where I want to stay. I've mapped out a couple of hotels in the correct radiuses for certain things. I've got the horrible feeling the one I want to stay at is going to end up being an official Star Wars one, which means I have to go elsewhere because they'll just like quadruple the price for no reason. But this is it. Like, next year for me is, if I were to say it, it's like a retirement from like nerd stuff after. Like, I will be saving up within this month to start buying my own place, which for any non-English people, it's not easy here anymore to get your own place. Nope. There you go. Charlie's in the comments. Official hotels are overrated anyway. Well, this is it. I mean, when we all stayed at the Premier Inn by the XL, I messaged so many people when they announced that, and I think mine was it like £320 for 4 or 5 nights?
Yeah, we got it.
It was beautiful
because we booked it as we were booking our tickets. So before we had our tickets, we already had the hotel booked. And the next day, it jumped up to like $1,500, which was just hilarious.
And then the ones next door, literally about 10 foot away from ours, were like £300 a night. Carl put Jenny Nichols' breakdown the Stars Hotel stuff. I don't think I've seen that. I'd be curious because I know she's like really big on. God, that's a name I've not heard in a very long time. Charlie, I ordered my premiere in Amazon. Yeah, I think you were awake and I literally text you like, get on it. And I think I just started messaging so many people, book this premiere in. Even if you're not going to come, you can book it and not pay a penny until you get there. I should have got a commission that weekend. But it's going to be huge next year. And this is kind of it. Like, I don't want to sound like an old man. I'm only turning 30 this year, but it's like I've got a niece on the way. I've got life stuff. It is that like I've not got many more of these left in me. In terms of like financially viability left in me is probably the more important term. So I think 2027 is going to be my Jake Gyllenhaal like kiss farewell, walk off into the sunset. Not from YouTube, maybe YouTube. Who knows?
Let's announce London again, in which case we'll go, yeah.
Oh yeah, if I had this thought yesterday, like if they announced Celebration London again, I was in Anaheim, I'm straight on the premium website, like whatever panel I'm at. And I remember in Chicago when they announced Anaheim, I was like, Charlie, we'll see you in 2029. Yeah, exactly. 20. Listen, if they're making films again, they're going to do it at Pinewood. Disney's lease on Pinewood. It's going to stay in England. Dave Filoni brought Ahsoka, the first of his productions, to be primarily in London. It's gonna continue to happen. I felt like I've gone way off topic. Phil, should we not round out? Should we do a talk that might? I don't want to say be too long. So we said, it's been an hour and a half. I've got one big bullet point left on this discussion for tonight. The future projects updates by Kathleen Kennedy. Now, as we've said, with everything here, some of these may get made, some of these may not. Some of these might remain a mystery. Let's take The Hunt for Ben Solo, for example. No one had ever spoken about that film until Adam Driver did an interview in October about that film. There's never ever a murmur, let alone Steven Soderbergh attached direct, a script that had been written, and the fact Lucasfilm had what's the word? The fact that Lucasfilm wanted to make it, but Disney didn't. That goes to show how selective things that come out into the public domain are. The fact that the only reason that wasn't in the public domain was because Adam Driver said so, and he had about 4 years to say so, and he chose then. Makes you wonder there's things going on behind the scenes. So Carl just put, if they do come out to London, they need to move from the Excel Centre. And he says, please don't make Ben Solo. Okay, my thoughts on the Excel very quickly.
Yeah, the NEC, perfect.
The NEC is the best venue in the country for this. The problem is
you would have to stay anywhere.
Everyone's going to want to stay in mine. I'm 20 minutes away. It's my local cinema. The problem with the NEC is the tourist side.
Yeah.
And come to Birmingham, Peaky Blinders. That's kind of it, folks. Come to Birmingham. There's been a year-long bin strike. It's off a motorway. It's not easy to get to, and people can't. Who wants to take in the views of Birmingham City? Not me. So that's I get the whole point of the NEC is you can't. It needs to be in the Midlands. My issue with the Excel at the last celebration is just the layout was awful. I don't understand still.
I do not understand.
Well, I felt bad for you. Like me and Dave were like shattered. We didn't even want to walk around. And then you're there, like, I mean, not just you. I had another friend in a wheelchair that weekend. Not to say cheat code, but he just done his ACL and he had surgery. It was a Mr. Bean sketch. He had his leg up in a wheelchair, and people were barging into him. I was like, the geezer's just had surgery. Thank you for letting me skip every single autograph queue. Much appreciated alongside the celebration store queue. But I don't know what they did wrong, because even when you go to MCM, I'm not the biggest fan of MCM. Same organisers, they utilised it so well, and I just what they did in 2023, I do not understand.
They did it better in 2016.
Yes, they didn't. I still can't wrap my head around 2023. I still loved the event. Don't get me wrong. It was just the layout. Like whenever a panel finished, It was like the White Walkers out of Game of Thrones. Like you've got a whole horde of people coming at you, and you're just trying to make it to a room, and there's like 1,000 people walking at you because you've moved everything to the other side of the building. Sorry.
Well, that
Sorry
and when it was like when Rob and I went to the thing was the Ahsoka panel, we couldn't find it to begin with. We got told to go in so many different directions trying to get there. It's like, but it's underutilized. But anyway, we're not talking about celebration of the past. We're talking about the future.
Right, future projects. Okay, Carl doesn't want the bend on it. Charlie, thankfully, Presto was better for Japan. I'm still envious and I'm very jealous. You had a good time. Carl says, don't make the Ben Solo film. Well, all things understandable. It does seem like the Ben Solo film, they're not going to be hunting for him anytime soon. Which I'm torn on the middle on that one. The biggest attraction to me is both Rian Johnson and Steven Soderbergh, not necessarily the story. But I just dislike the concept that Lucasfilm wanted to make this film and they couldn't. That's my real criticism of that project. So let's talk about the big ones they speak about in this article, okay? Simon Kinberg's trilogy. The discussion of this is that it will be a trilogy. There's a 70-page treatment out there. How do I say it nicely? Simon Kinberg, obviously he worked on Rebels and he has a working relationship with Dave Filoni. There's your big positive. And I'm not going to judge all of these one by one. But it seems like Kinberg's would be next. Kathleen Kennedy directly says it in the article, it would be a new trilogy, and that Dave and Lynwen are very much on board, quotation marks. She said in the timeline, that would take you well into the 2030 plus. So that feels like that's after Starfighter. Again, it's hard to go for something that there's nothing known about it other than the attachment of an individual. And I said, Kinberg's Star Wars work wasn't bad. The worry is if you look at all of his other projects that have been in production, and I think that's my fear, if I'm allowed to say so. But do you have any thoughts on that one before we go through some ones we might know a little bit more about?
His other stuff, to be honest. It's not someone.
You're in for a treat. Okay. Simon Kinberg, Fant Forstick.
Oh, right.
So he took over that from Josh Trank, also ex-Star Wars owner. I believe Simon Kinberg actually did help get Josh Trank sacked from Star Wars because he'd known what's going on. Anyway, he directed Dark Phoenix, that X-Men film. He was a producer on all the other X-Men, so his IMDb is littered with them. But his first time directing a film was Dark Phoenix, which I know there's a bit of a mess. He's only directed one film since, the 355, which is on Netflix. He's got a couple of writing and producing credits here and there. I'm not like a monster to say get away, but there's a lot less known, so I'm not.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Well,
there's a lot less known. I'm more into it if it's an unknown. Like, if they say, right, we're doing a trilogy, it's going to be set like 30s after 9, or it's going to be set thousands before 4. I'm like, okay, I'm indifferent. But supposedly Kinberg's next. That's one. The ones we can clearly talk a little bit more about are the ones we do know. So, quote unquote, I'm just going to summarize these. Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy. And I love they just directly asked Kathleen Kennedy about this. She basically said that Knives Out's taken a lot of his time. That was obviously huge for him. After Last Jedi, he's been working with Netflix exclusively from that point. She did make a comment that she believes he's been spooked by the fandom, which is interesting to get that open. And she also mentioned that some of the actors also they speak to worry about jumping on board a Star Wars production because of stuff like that. But she uses the segue into talking about Starfighter, where Sean Levy had she spoke to Sean Levy about 10 years ago about working on Star Wars. Then once Stranger Things obviously blew up a bit, he wasn't as available, but they found the project that worked, that they wanted him, that he wanted to be involved in, and then it was made. So I appreciate the honesty we're hearing from this. But some of the others, Mangold's Star Wars film, which he was at Celebration in that room with us, is now on the back burner. Now, James Mangold, I will tell you right away, he went off after that point to make the Timothée Chalamet Bob Dylan biopic. And his next film, I think, is either filming or about to start filming. So I've got no concern that was put on the back burner. He's got multiple things in production on the go. Don't know what that means for the future. Don't know if back burner is a polite way of saying it's done for, because Soderbergh's has also been added to the back burner. The follow-up to this is where it's going to get interesting. The ones by Taika, aka Taika Waititi, and Donald, being Donald Glover, are still somewhat key, somewhat alive. And then she basically says that's up to the new team to figure out. Now, I'm going to be really open with this. I don't want Taika Waititi anywhere near directing Star Wars. And maybe this will feel a bit personal, a little bit unfair. I loved his episode of The Mandalorian. I think Taika Waititi, since Jojo Rabbit, has done nothing of any value to film and TV. I'm going to be totally open and say I think the Oscar for writing's gone to his head, and he feels, it sounds like a football rant, he feels far more encompassed in the celebrity lifestyle than being incredible with what he does. I don't want him near Star Wars. 10 years ago, I would have said probably yes. Who's this New Zealand guy that's in these weird projects? But I think as time's gone by, it's become a bit more apparent that Jermaine Clement might be the brains behind his work. Your thoughts on Taika?
If it's the right project, I don't mind. Like, it's the thing, when it comes to Star Wars, right? When I can literally look to my left and I can look at my shelves, I can see all of my books. I know where all the different Star Wars stuff kind of lies. Like, if they were to do something live action Bad Batch, that would kind of work, right? Like, that's got his vibe on it.
New Zealanders.
Yeah, but with the comedy, more the comedy aspect to it, right? Like, it's got some serious notes, but it's got a lot of comedy to it. Taika, I have found over the years, when he's given free reign, let's look at Ragnarok versus Love and Thunder. Now, I enjoy Love and Thunder from a point of view, if I switch my brain off, actually, it's kind of not half bad as an entertainment purpose. It's not a great Thor film, but it's not a bad film in overall, right? Ragnarok was a properly good film, and it was good because it was here's your structure, you get to put your flavor on top of that. And I think that's the way it needs to work. If he has a structure and he gets to put his flavor in, like The Mandalorian, that flavor added on top was perfect. Like, it was just the individualism that made the context work better. And I think that's why I would be for that. I'm not entirely sure I want him doing a full trilogy unless the story fits well, but I don't know if you can have a trilogy of comedy Star Wars films. I don't think it works.
No, I agree with you. I'm just going to bring Charlie's comment too with that, because I'm with you with the Thor stuff. I love Ragnarok. Ragnarok had no reason to be as good as it was, and it completely revitalized Thor, which the Russo Brothers did a great job with after. And then you get to Love and Thunder. Is like, for me, I was incredibly, not to moan about the disappointed fanboys, like I said earlier. It's not like I wanted to know what happened. I just could not believe that was the final product, like, because he had complete free reign at that point, right? That's where it went.
It's more like you bring Natalie Portman back for this. All right, fair enough.
And then also on her, like, she came back for that. Okay, yeah, she's living in Australia. But Charlie put, Kinberg wrote one of the best Rebel stories, but I don't know. I think he thrives in positive surroundings, which hopefully Lucasfilm is. I would also agree with that. And Bavaria agrees with you too, Phil, about what he says about Ragnarok. If they can rein him in, it could work, which is very fair. And he's been attached for a very long time. And I don't mind Lucasfilm going after directors with personality. And I think that's what Kathleen Kennedy certainly tried to do. I mean, the Donald Glover one we'll talk about here, this is the Lando Calrissian. I can't remember if it's gone from a series to a film or still a series.
I think it went from series to film back to series.
Carl's made a great point. He's beat us to it. Is there a demand for the general launch for Lando film? Feels like a Disney Plus film. And this is what I'm intrigued by.
It feels to me more like like Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Underworld, like that kind of vibe. I think it suits it more. You know, the Lando tales from here's him in original trilogy guys, here's him in New Republic guys. You know, there seems to be something there that they could do with that, but not. I mean, I love it. I love the idea behind it. I love the whole you know, if you get Billy D to sit down and do a couple of just pieces to camera of this is where the story starts, and then you have someone do the rest. Like, there's so many cool things they could do with it, but I don't know. It definitely does not feel like a film. It definitely feels like it would work more as a series and a limited a limited series of that.
Donald Glover. So I'm a bit biased. Donald Glover. I love him. I'm a huge fan of his work as a musician as well as an actor. He's a very successful writer. I've not seen the Mr. and Mrs. Smith reboot, but apparently that ended up being surprisingly very good. And they're doing a second season.
Incredibly sharp mind when it comes to storytelling. He has an incredibly sharp eye for detail that I like.
Yeah, and it's kind of it like going back to Carl's comment. Is there a demand from the general? The general is such a fascinating answer because I don't want to bring up the Big A or Big Jim, as I like to call him. Every 3 years, we are told Avatar has no cultural impact. And every 3 years, Avatar goes and makes $1 billion plus. Okay, Lando's not going to make $1 billion plus. I'm just going to say that now. It's a bit Avatar's a special example. That's probably also really unfair to bring it up. But if there's a project that could be realized, that could be made, and the studio is in on it, the job is to convince the general audience to come to the cinema to go see it. And Lando is curious of me because I don't necessarily know if the general audience have a demand for a Lando film. But I certainly think there'd be an enigma with it. And I do think, and I do like Solo. I'll always maintain that I like Solo. Donald Glover was the standout of that film for me. And I was really excited about him going in, and I loved him coming out of that. And obviously the fact, we got Billy D back in 9. It would be very interesting. I'm with you. I think it'd have to be a series. But the fact that Kathleen Kennedy has said in this article itself is, quote, somewhat alive, that's going to be up for the new team. Which I find interesting. I feel like there's a couple of others, but I cannot find them.
Well, so Celebration 23, we had obviously the new Jedi Order announcement with Daisy Ridley. We also then had the timeline.
That's not mentioned at all.
No, that's not been mentioned. Also, the timeline mention of Dawn of the Jedi, as well as the Old Republic. Now, Old Republic, we now at least have news on because we are getting Fate of the Old Republic, the game, which I have just completed my playthrough of the first Knights of the Old Republic, and I'm nearly finished with the second one as a proper. It kind of got me hyped for it. I've also been listening to the Darth Bane books. They're no longer canon, but my God, they're fantastic books. And also Mark Hamill did an absolutely amazing job of playing him in Clone Wars. But the big interesting one for me is the Acolyte. Very much polarizing. You know my opinions. I'm not going to get into it here because we could take forever. Go back and watch the videos that we did talking about that show. I absolutely adored it, but again, that's where a lot of these things are going to come into it. That's what's going to put people off, I think, and that's where Filoni now needs to step in and go, okay, I get you might be spooked, but these are the stories we need to tell, and this is why. And this is my one hang-up, and I'm glad we're coming to it to the end, because my one hang-up is he's going to go, all right, well, here are the stories I want to tell. These are the stories that should be told. And he might leave some bits alone, but he also might play it a bit safe to begin with. So we might not get some of these projects might be put on the back burner for too long, and they might not come to fruition, mainly because it's a new slate. Here's what went wrong before. Here's what went right. Let's try off, hit the ground running with something we know is going to work. I need to see the creativity come into it a bit more, but also Dave Filoni. We've seen him. Yeah, we're going to see the Mortis Gods, I reckon, in Ahsoka Season 2. And you know my opinions full well on that. However, I have a new theory on that, which I'll talk to you about privately because I want to see how it comes out in Ahsoka. Okay. So I'm not going to say too much here. But the interview does go over these things as we're talking about now. But what I like is a lot of it, she says, yes, it's up for the new team. But I guarantee you, though, being Kathleen Kennedy, one of the best things she will have done would have been she says it in the interview of, it's up to the new team. Behind the closed doors, this is the plan I was working to. Over the last 2 years, you have seen me go through it. I have talked you through it. It's not going to be a complete, well, we're going to announce all these things in 27 because we want to do them now. We've had this in the plan. This is the transition period we're talking about. It's 29 and 30 onwards, which 2030 still sounds like it's forever away, and it's not. It's just like 4 years, which is just mind-blowing. Like we're close to 2030, they are 2020 in that regard, but by the time you get there, that's when these new things will start coming to fruition. Some of these projects will get picked up again. And I do think the Dave Filoni want to go back, I think, to that schedule that Kathleen Kennedy started of, no, back to one film, one show kind of Then we might see some animation stuff because that's what he was known for best, especially between Avatar, which is now being finished as well. Not the same Avatar, obviously, that's our Last Airbender. That's now coming back and getting finished, which I think Filoni's probably had a hand in somewhere as well. And you'll get some animation stuff, you'll get some live action stuff, you'll get some films. But I do think that the projects that weren't mentioned speaks volumes, but I also don't think we should look on it too much because we don't know the full story.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up 2 more comments, and then I'm going to round out into talking about Starfighter before we give final thoughts. But Carl, this is going to go into something I want to bring up. Honest opinion, do we move on from Rey? Do we have a proper clean slate? So I have a very, very controversial opinion on this. I don't know if it's controversial, but I don't know. I've not really heard it. I am all for a Rey film. Based off the last 2 to 3 months, the hunt for Ben Solo, right? Adam Driver wanted to come back to Star Wars. He developed this with Soderbergh. He worked on Soderbergh on Logan Lucky, great film. Adam Driver, who's been incredibly successful during Star Wars, post-Star Wars, of the actors. The fact he wanted to come back, and he does a lot of theatre. He's very military background, which people know about, very stern. The fact that, and he made 1 appearance at a convention, never again. I still love that. The fact he clearly, I'm going to say it, wasn't fulfilled with his character to the point where he wanted to do another film. Because I think, let's say you have a perfect trilogy and everyone's characters everyone's very, very happy with where they are in their lives and what they've done. I don't think Adam Driver would want to come back. I think he'd be like, that was my trilogy. I'm happy to move on, at least for I say a couple of decades. But the fact this was like 2021, him and Soderbergh worked on this film, I'm like, okay, he's not happy. Oscar Isaac, who I'm going to add has worked with Adam Driver on a few things other than Star Wars 2, was asked about this at the Golden Globes on Sunday just gone. And Oscar Isaac gave a very sarcastic interview, very funny interview, but it was clear that he knew about this as well. And Oscar Isaac, who made a joke saying, don't ever talk about coming back to Star Wars, in the last 2 years has spoken about, I actually want to come back to Star Wars. And what you said earlier, right, with these people who there's association attached, they're probably looking at Ewan McGregor's, Hayden Christensen's, who've all come back in recent years, found a different enjoyment of it. The Rey conversation fascinates me because I really like Daisy Ridley, and I think her and Ben Solo were the 2 most interesting characters of this trilogy for 2 films and a bit until 9 did what 9 did, my opinion. And I do not mind a film about Rey set, let's say, 10 years after. Because when we bring up the discussion of The Mandalorian and Luke coming back, we never got to see Mark Hamill in his prime. So I don't want there to be a route in 30 years where we're only going to see Daisy Ridley play Rey in her 60s. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean, the premise of New Jedi Order was set 15 years in the future. So by the time we get 15 years, it will be time.
And my thing with this more than anything is, my biggest criticism, they went through so many different writers. When Stephen Knight, and not everyone's going to work for every project, but they went through a hell of a lot of writers in this project. You lose Stephen Knight, who obviously is doing now Bond. That's quite a step up. I'm going to be really honest. I have no interest in this film with Charmin Obaid-Chinoy as the director. And that sounds really horrible. I have no interest in a documentary director directing a Star Wars live-action film. I know she directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel, and I thought Miss Marvel was a good series that was very much underseen because it was at the wrong end of the Disney let's make everything a TV show campaign. You cannot give a $200 million budget, $150 million budget to a documentary filmmaker to now go and make a fictional Star Wars film. There is a jump up and there is a elevator up. Unless a different director is attached to that project, I'm nervous. And with me being too nervous, I'm not interested because I don't want that. And I think, I'm not going to say bring back J.J. Abrams. I think for when they choose to revisit sequel era cast, probably a better term, you need a steady pair of hands, experienced pair of hands, someone who absolutely is comfortable. Yeah, like that sort of name would be perfect. So it sounds really horrible as the director. I don't mean it. I don't think a documentary director can make that leap.
No. I'm not sure either, but I want the story. I really want the story.
Yes, this is it. I'm with you. I want something new, and this is what Bavari put. Maybe I'm the only one, but I'd like new characters not related to past. The galaxy is big, and because they've Jedi, Sith, the Force, I am with you. Which is why my crushing disappointment of the sequel trilogy was Palpatine Rey. Enjoy, go play. I loved that I am no one. You didn't need to be someone's daughter. You didn't need to be someone's cousin, sister. That all great for Ben Solo. You need one of the kids from someone somewhere, but. Yeah, I loved the concept of she just has the Force, therefore will become a Jedi new character. You still have the Skywalker side of things with Ben Solo, who is going to be the villain for this trilogy. And this is where I'm talking. This is where I'm going to segue into Starfighter. Star Wars Starfighter, when it was announced, I was like, not because of Sean Levy, not because of Ryan Gosling, definitely because of Ryan Gosling. When they originally announced it, I was just like, we've heard about so many films, right? Talking something that wasn't mentioned, Rogue Squadron, or what's her name, Patty Jenkins, that didn't get brought up, and that's been rumoured a couple of months ago, clearly not. The approach, and I'm going to make a very unfair comment on Mando and Grogu here. Mando and Grogu seemed to enter production with no one knowing. It just was like, by the way, they're making a Mandalorian film. Everyone's like, hey? Like, it just seemed to happen. It went from season 4 to, no, actually, they're halfway through making a film and no one knew. And, okay, we've only had 2 teasers, and teasers aren't a trailer. Teasers are teasers for that. You're not meant to know story. I will make this comment. I always say, people are saying, it looks like the TV show, but for the trailer of the TV show, everyone's like, oh my God, it looks like a film. Pick your battles. I need a proper trailer for that film. I'm just going to say that now. I need a proper trailer, a bit more story. But I feel Lucasfilm's approach to Starfighter has been more traditional. That it isn't, we're uncovered in secrets. It's, hey, here's some behind-the-scenes photos of the director on set. Here's Ryan Gosling on set. Here's the formal cast that's being announced the old school way with everyone's face on the page. Guess what, guys? Tom Cruise came to set, and Tom Cruise filmed a lightsaber duel on his day of visiting alongside Spielberg. And I'm sat there, and everything I'm hearing about Starfighter excites me. And it feels...
The biggest thing for me is when they announced it, sorry, just to jump in here,
Yeah.
was the whole, we're not announcing a film that's in the works, we're announcing a film that's going into production later this year.
Yes. And this was it. And you bring on Ryan Gosling, who I love. Big fan of the Gos. You've got Sean Levy, who I think is a very capable director who gets a lot of shit for no reason. Who's been a very, very successful director, I will add to that too. You absolutely, as a studio, would want him to direct your film. He's shown in things like Stranger Things, he's quite clearly not just a studio guy, that he has a vision. Whilst there are some things probably being chucked under the Ryan Reynolds umbrella for maybe too long, which is understandable. There's some myths about it, but everything we're hearing about Starfighter is really positive. The fact it's the anniversary year, the fact it'll be the 50th anniversary, the fact we're going to have a new film 5 years after episode 9 to maybe kickstart a new era of Star Wars is exciting. It doesn't need to be a franchise. There are rumors that maybe Oscar Isaac could turn up. There's always going to be rumors about who may or may not turn up, but the approach, what I'm saying from Mando versus Starfighter, is wildly different. And I think, ironically, Starfighter is a much difficult film to market because you literally, the title Starfighter, that's not episodes, that's not established character, it's a Starfighter. And I'm so excited for that. And a year ago, I might not have been as excited, but everything they have done with that film has excited me. And that's what I would like. It's new characters. You got Matt Smith and Mia Goth as villains. That's wild. Like, that's incredible casting. You're back shooting a film at Pinewood. You got practical sets. You're going to have the best CGI with Violin working on it. Obviously, it still needs to be secretive. And it's going to be that big anniversary. Guess what, guys? You've just had this episode 4 re-release. Now here's something new that we've never done before. That's what I'm excited about. And that's like, not that I have any say in the opinion masters of Lucasfilm, but that's what I really hope they're looking at moving forward. It's these little calls. Maybe Starfighter will introduce us to a new era, then maybe a film will come down the line set in that era. I don't know what that could mean, but I'm sold. I'm excited, and that's what I want to see. And I think that's the positives I'm looking at for the future, that whilst we know we're getting the Mandalorian in May and it's a few months away, and it hasn't had the discussion maybe people thought it might have had, it's probably still going to be a gigantic hit. Obviously, the level of that we'll find out in June, July time. But Your thoughts on Starfight, how they've approached it?
Well, I'm loving it. I don't know how I feel about the lightsaber duel that's been rumored. Purely
But
because
Sean Levy said it in an interview. How many he didn't just say it in an interview. It wasn't a red carpet. Oh, they got me. It was with the Wall Street Journal. Like that has been cross-referenced by Lucasfilm.
I don't know why
Lucasfilm have said.
I don't know why you need it in it, because it's a Starfighter.
I know. Well, it's going to be the villains probably, but if Lucasfilm is saying it's okay for you to say that and it's okay for you, the press, to publish that, then clearly, my theory, you've probably got a Force sensitive kid that's going to get hunted down by Matt Smith and Mia Goth, and Ryan Reynolds. Sorry, wrong Ryan. Ryan Gosling is going to be there to take him, to guide him, to get him somewhere. That's me knowing nothing.
We'll find out the story when we get there. So that's the only bit I'm like, okay, do we need this in a Starfight film? But again, I don't know anything about the story, so I can't really say too much on it just yet. There's just more of my thoughts and opinions, kind of seeing what we've got so far. But I am very interested to see how it is going to be. The cast list is stellar. The actual production, I think, is going to be fantastic. Mando and Grogu, there's been very little about, which I think, considering it's in May, is kind of concerning a little bit. The fact that we've only had half a trailer that's been kind of leaked, kind of not. Super Bowl's coming up in a few weeks' time. We'll get the trailer then. Like, I know how this kind of works, and I think in a year's time, by the time we get to Super Bowl next year, that's when we get Starfighter trailer as well.
I think Disney's like, now Avatar's done and out of the way. It's now going to slowly turn into full beams on Mando in May, maybe.
Yeah, but we also. I also want to see what happens, because when we got at Celebration 23, not only did we have that with Daisy Ridley, we also then had New Jedi Order for that. As I said, we then had Dawn of the Jedi, 25,000 years in the past. We've got the Old Republic, which has had a soft kind of test the water with Fate of the Old Republic that's coming out. In terms of the High Republic, Eclipse has also had some rumblings that it's still kind of going on, which I'm interested by. But also, here's my big thing. We'll talk about this in a later date properly. But I'm interested to see what happens with, because it's been Dave Filoni. We have Ahsoka, season 2. They're in a new galaxy. I think his stories are going to be a lot of, we're exploring this new galaxy. Here's how the Mortis gods weren't actually gods. They were beings that came in from another galaxy, kind of brought the Force. There's a whole theory behind that I'm kind of looking at as to where it might go, but I think that's the direction we could see, is Filoni going forwards and backwards, but I think it's a lot of...
Is he going to go the George Lucas, like, I'm going to really deep dive into the meaning of...
Yes.
He won't say the word midichlorian, but he will, like, want to deep dive into the Force as a concept, I think. And this is kind of it, like, it's interesting and it's fun to talk about, to theorize, and it's because we haven't done Star Wars in so long. I mean, it's kind of wild. Like, I had no idea 2 days ago I'd be doing this video tonight. I sat there like, Christ, I'm doing 2 videos this week. I'm going to have a long weekend to catch up on some stuff. Clearly not. What was I going to say before that point? I had something to say, but I forgot what I was going to say, because I've gone almost 2 hours, which is kind of ironic. Filoni. No, ignore me. I have forgotten. So with that in mind... I'm not going to end it, because that's evil. I feel like I've discussed everything I can whilst I'm trying to refresh my brain on that last 30 seconds. Before we do final thoughts, is there anything you want to add, or anything you think we've missed out on that we should talk about? I know what else we're going to talk about, but I'll talk about it after.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so it sounds like I'm plugging and we're going into final thoughts. I'm going to do final thoughts, then I'll talk about it, because it's about something upcoming. This has been a very great discussion, I'm going to say. Just under 2 hours. It's been lovely to have people commenting. It's nice to be back live. We do tend to do Star Wars videos live. I think because there hasn't been, as I said, there's not been anything since Andor, like, that we've covered on the channel is the more important word, until what will be, I assume, the Maul series, if that does start in the spring or maybe May time. Basically, there's a comic out, or coming out.
Coming out in
Maul comic April. People think that's a bit of a giveaway for the release date for the animated series, that it may be around April, May time, which would make sense. But talking this discussion, Kathleen Kennedy stepping down, the change of hierarchy within Lucasfilm, the relationship with Disney, the future projects, the celebration for next year, the anniversary of the 50 years of Star Wars, this has definitely helped. I wasn't with you in the night after episode 9. You went to the bar. and you had an all-nighter, and you had to talk about episode 9. I just went to bed very angry / upset. It's been nice to talk about this because there's a lot to take in. And going back to right at the start of this video, not that it was a spoiler, we're not going to know the impact of this for years and years. But it's been great to discuss what has been happening across the last few years and looking at historic events within Star Wars, within Lucasfilm's leadership structure when they've been sold to Disney. So, Phil, it's been amazing to discuss this with you. I don't really have a final thought because it's not a review, it's a discussion. But I will end after your final thoughts with what's to come.
So I'm going to end my thoughts on this. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, because she had one of the most difficult jobs, not in cinema history, but it's got to be up there. With a legacy this big, that's an awful lot of pressure. She has taken it. Yeah, okay, she's not done everything perfectly, but there have been some good moments. There's also been some great moments of Bryce Dallas Howard, pushing her to then do more in her own thing. Deborah Chow, when it came to Obi-Wan Kenobi, we had that. There's been so many little things. Even The Acolyte, which has been polarized, she stood behind it. She stood behind a lot of her good decisions and her bad ones. Even in this exit interview, talking about her honest opinions on Solo and her regrets. And it was more of there's a lot of things she's done wrong. There's a lot of things she's done right. However you view her, she took the reins of a company and gave it life and gave it a lot of meaning, a lot of purpose, and a lot of stories. And Phill, we wouldn't have met without it either. So there's a lot of goodness that comes out of it.
This channel doesn't exist without Disney buying Star Wars, by the way.
Yeah. So there are some bad things, yes. There's a lot of good. However you view it, I still say thank you for what she's done for Star Wars. Because I remember when I was at uni and I had that announcement, I'm like, I don't want that Disney logo anywhere near my precious Star Wars logo. And I ate a lot of humble pie, and I still do, and I still talk about it because I own my mistakes as well. But at the same time, there's good, there's bad, but thank you. That's basically my final thought on that.
I'll echo what you say. My PTSD of Disney buying Star Wars was Arsenal were 4-0 down at halftime to Reading in the League Cup. When I checked my phone and saw on Twitter Disney had bought Star Wars. That photo, you all know the one, was like the sinking of the Titanic for me. And Arsenal came back to win 7-5 with a frauding goal called Martinez. He plays for Aston Villa now. And much like Arsenal that day, Star Wars did come back, and Star Wars did end up doing much better for itself. As you said, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know people commenting. The people I've met, the career paths I've taken, you can say that as well. Everything stems down. Even being part of the Droid Builders, who released a lovely statement tonight. You want to know the Kathleen Kennedy story. Take one of the leading Droid Builders at the time at Celebration 2013. He just walks up to Kathleen Kennedy, given she's been at this company for 6-7 months, and says, rather than hire some engineers to go build droids, why don't you use the guy in the clubs that have built them? And she did that. She put that forward, and the Droid Builders have worked on every single Star Wars production since in the UK, which is quite impressive. And again, without a producer like her, that's just quite big. That's my personal side of it, because I'm within that group. I know there's people that have had opportunities to work on the sets, that have built those droids, that then opportunities to put their droids into real life Star Wars.
Yeah, without it, I don't get to work on my dream job either.
Yeah, and Bavari, nice to be live stream again, but better than 2021 where they tried to burn me up with Stars and Marvel. Have a nice weekend. Yes, have a lovely weekend. Oh God, those were the days. Live streaming once. So I think we had WandaVision on one week, and every single time a series finished, the next one started for a good year. And it was just too much. And again, Disney have learned the really hard way. But what I will say is, what is to come? Well, there is a Star Wars film coming out this year. I'm right in saying this is the first Star Wars video on the channel since the BFI last year, which wasn't even a discussion. That was me by myself. I have been making plans of what I want to do for Star Wars for the next. I'm going to be open. What do I want to do for Star Wars for the next 17 months? Because we've got Mandalorian May coming, and that's what I'm calling it on the channel. Do I know what I'm doing in May for the Mandalorian? No, I don't. I'm probably going to rewatch the 3 seasons at home at some point, but I do not know what I'm going to do. But I will be doing a build to the Mandalorian. Like many videos on the channel, if we're very lucky in receiving an invite to a press screening, then there'll be a spoiler-free review in light of an embargo. But as always, there will be a massive spoiler discussion after the film is released to be able to do a live. but I anticipate doing some fun stuff before. But then I also think, like Japan last year, the 50th anniversary of Star Wars is coming up soon. And I'll be totally honest, I've currently already got more videos planned for the 50th anniversary than I do for Mandalorian. So there will be a lot of Star Wars stuff next year. Obviously, we've got Ahsoka in between. We've got the Maul series coming up. But one original idea, which I can say, which definitely is going to happen, I wanted to do a 50-week countdown to the 50th anniversary. I just cannot commit, nor find the guests, nor find the, what's the word? The justification of 50 episodes. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to it. That's a lot's taken. So there's going to be a lot of things for the 50th anniversary that I'm planning on doing next year. 2 of them are great ideas I want to do for a very long time. Maybe that makes 3 if I look at other things we've done for other films with big anniversaries. Obviously, Star Wars we've covered so many times historically. There's a lot of things planned. There will be more to talk about. We'll be getting more announcements. Maybe at D23 there'll be a video, but maybe this might be that Star Wars video for maybe 2-3 months until the Mandalorian stuff really kicks in. So that is me very politely hyping up what's to come without rounding out. Plugging what else is out there. We're on a Pixar retrospective at the moment. Videos go up every single Tuesday evening. It's been a lot of fun so far. There's a lot of animated films to watch, a lot of discussions, a lot of organising. So that's taken the bulk of the work until the summertime. And obviously, once we start getting those new releases, we're in award season, it's busy. Peaky Blinders reviews might be starting next Thursday, which will be a 6-week series if I can commit to it. Things are busy, and we don't get to do these fun things like people watching, people commenting. So thank you, everyone that's been with us tonight. Phill, for yourself, for jumping on, taking a couple of hours out of your Friday evening, Friday of all days. And for Lucasfilm, who so delicately released this statement out of nowhere last night. We do appreciate it. And echoing what you said, a massive thank you to Kathleen and Kennedy for her contribution to Lucasfilm and the excitement of what is to come with a new leadership structure. A new era of Star Wars is upon us, and we'll be there to cover it as and when there are things to do. So thank you all so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you then.